had a website, but it was almost like a vanity project back then. Now it is like an entrance fee to have a business.
Good. Hey, I wanted to let you know that the Google guarantee, the Google ads, man, I'm getting 12 to 16 calls a week.
My goal is at least do 10 to 15 more years, grow it up, sell it for 40, 50 million, maybe more.
Today is January 27th, 2023, and my guest is Nick Slavik. Nick is the owner and founder of Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration, as well as the Ask a Painter Live podcast, one of the industry's top podcasts. On top of this, Nick runs a painter masterclass series and is an active partner with the Painting Contractors Association, an organization founded in 1884 to represent the painting and decorating industry. We are also joined today by Nick Ornitz, co-founder and CEO of Topline Pro, a startup that helps home service businesses get discovered online, trusted and booked directly from their website. The company raised a seed round last year, has 12 employees, and is based in Brooklyn and Boston. Nick and Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show. Welcome to Titan Talks.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for the opportunity, guys. When Nick calls, I arrive. So any chance I get to do something with you guys, I'm here.
Hey, it's our privilege, and you do a better representation of the name Nick. So I'm just glad to be on here.
Oh, come on now.
Nick, to start things off, let's go back to the early days. Tell us, how'd you get started as a painter? What's the origin story?
Yeah, origin stories are really cool. And well, maybe they're not unique in the painting world. Really, you can boil it down to two main origin stories in the painting world, which is my dad made me do it, or I did it in college and I found myself back to it. And interestingly enough, my father did it in college, found his way back to it. And him being a father, he made me do it. So my father and I encompass all the two major origin stories. So from 10 years old, I was in there. That was the family business. You could imagine how little free time I had as a kid because of that.
Tell us more about your dad. Does he work with you at all? How was that relationship as you were just starting out?
Yeah. So you think about what you do a lot differently when you're forced to do it versus when you can choose to do it. So I did not look upon painting all that fondly between 10 and 18. Pretty tenuous relationship because you were kind of forced to do some manual labor. I did leave for the Army for 4 years out of high school, came back from the Army, used my GI Bill to get an education, used that education in support of the family business. And then when I graduated college and it was time to reform the family business, my dad basically told me there's no place for you here. So it's 15 years now. It's a 15th anniversary of my company. So 15 years ago, he told me to pound sand, and I did, and started my own company.
So you started the company first, podcast is second, is that right? And then, now you're with the Painting Contractors Association Masterclass series. Tell us, how do you do it all, Nick?
Yeah, good question. So I'm very intentional with my time, and I kind of think like, as business people, you would appreciate kind of the upper level thinking of this, which is I break my day into 3 8-hour days. You know, you think about most people will sleep for 8, work for 8, and then there's another 8 that you either use for family or Netflix or social media or some other way. Some people are a little more intentional about using that third 8. Early on, I met a lot of people and I asked the same question, was just like, wow, you seem really effective. Like, tell me what your day looks like. And literally it came down to the third 8. Like everybody uses that. Everybody who is insanely effective uses that third 8 really well. So what I do is I actually divide that third 8 between 4 hours family and 4 hours of my business pursuits. So what you're not seeing in there is a whole bunch of time where I'm playing Angry Birds and stuff, but I'm fine with that. That doesn't give me any energy. Business and family give me a ton of energy. So that's how I've thought about this pursuit.
Amazing. And Nick, I know one of the things that caught my eye early on in watching Ask a Painter was you talked a lot about automation. You built a lot of systems around automation and how do you learn how to do something and then automate it so that you can save that time. Would you say that plays into, those magical 8s there and making that extra 4 hours in the day more effective? And tell us a little bit about how you view automation with your business.
Yeah, so I view automation slightly different than most people's knee-jerk reaction. Most people think automating a business is a insanely sophisticated, complicated web of Zapiers and apps and things like this. And I use those sparingly because it can become spaghetti, right? Like I'm not a tech guy, but I got introduced to that idea of spaghetti code where it gets so infinitely complex that when something goes wrong, it's not even fixable anymore and you have to start over. So like I use all that stuff sparingly. And the way I use automation is I created every system from the ground up using G Sheets. So I have an intricate, intimate knowledge of all of our systems. And I like that stuff. That's not a burden to me. We use automations, we use functions, we use formulas. And then the way that I do it a tad bit differently is we have a lot of humanistic systems. So we have a leadership team of 6. We have anywhere between 30 and 40 people in my company. And we divide up the main functions of the business between as much technology as we can, but then also driven and held accountable by a human. Because if I create a web of Zapiers and apps and things like that, the accountability still all lies on me for it. And if something goes wrong and I'm on vacation, I'm still the sort of linchpin in that. So really it's that like, it's the just diffusion of that accountability.
Makes total sense. And I think the best way you learn how to automate is also you do it first manually and you figure out what works, and then you figure out what time can be saved and what can't. And you have to keep that human touch, because at the end of the day, the business is based on trust. So if you don't have the human touch to it, you could lose that. But one of the ways you can amplify that human touch is you have more time to do it and not doing the tasks where you're not interacting with that customer.
That's it. And one of the interesting things is sometimes, people sometimes think complexity and automation are synonymous, and they are not. I mean, I think if we've done anything really well unintentionally from the start is we think of everything as simple, kind of like in reasoning and first principles, which is what is the actual problem? And here's how everybody does it. Does everybody do it because it's actually the simplest way? Or does everybody do it just because we've always done it that way? And I think that's the one thing we've done really well, which is like, what's the least we can do for the maximum effect? And remember, a human has to intertwine with it. So keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Then let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the business. How many employees do you have? How many jobs on the schedule? Let's hear, some of the nuts and bolts.
You got it. So we have a leadership team of 6, which includes me. We have a full-scale finishing facility with a crew of 2 that kind of oversee that. We have in the winter, it's probably a total of give or take 30 employees, part-time and full-time. And then in the summer, we probably swell to about 40 full-time and part-time. We have subcontractors as well. We have a crazy referral list of carpenters, drywallers, handymen, things like that we interact with regularly. Last year, we did about $3 million worth of revenue, and we keep about 10% of that in our queue sold, ready to go at any time. So we have, between $300,000 and $400,000 of sold work ready to go at any time.
Could you say a little bit more about that sold work? You keep it in your queue?
Yeah. So basically in our queue is all the work that we have sold, but not yet produced. So we have an estimating team of 2, and they'll do probably between 1,600 and 2,100 estimates this year. Our success ratio is right around 48.4%. Our average job size is about $6,700. And basically that's everything that they sell that we haven't yet produced is sitting in that queue ready to go.
And Nick, I can tell from those numbers that is from one of those Google Sheets, the 48.4, you've got the decimal there. How do you think about tracking those? What metrics are most important to you? And does that change throughout the year?
Yeah. So, when you say a very specific number like that, people think that, oh my God, his system must be so complex. Well, how you arrive at a success ratio is how many estimates did you do and how many did you sell? That is division, right? Yep. I'm not a math guy, but that is just, that is a simple division thing. But for at least our estimating and sales team, it's basically success ratio, it's average job size, it's number of estimates. And I'm trying to think what else then the sort of like the tree from that goes on to, where did the leads come from? So we can drive a lot of information from that. But on that, For the sales team, that's what we track. For the production management team, we track a different average job size, because typically what you sell is a completely different way of tracking versus what you actually produce. And then we're looking at weekly goals for the sales and project management team. Like, here's the minimum goal we can have, and then we start getting into personal improvement plans. Here's the thing that the company needs, and here's a high goal, like a reach goal for you.
Now tell us, where do those leads come from?
Yes. So depending on the quarter, 25 to 40% of our leads comes from word of mouth, repeat, and referral, which is pretty amazing, right? Like when you're, when you consider that 1.3 to $1.5 million worth of projects comes in just like from past clients and word of mouth, those are the best leads. Those are the highest quality, built on trust. There's $0, right? So they're ideal. One big fatal flaw with those is that you don't control them, right? Like they come in when they want. And so when you run a business like mine, you get to the point where it has to have predictability, especially in winter in Minnesota. So then we start overlaying our marketing mix, which is 25 to 40% of additional leads come in from direct mail, through every door direct mail through the US Postal Service. And then it starts getting into that weird last 10 to 20% mix of, website, SEO, AdWords, social media marketing, yard signs, vans, email marketing. It's kind of that last little mix of the whole bunch of potpourri stuff.
And Nick, on the word of mouth, do you track how that comes in? Is that coming in over email? Is that coming in through your website? Is that coming in on the phone, text messages? Or are you bucking it all into just word of mouth? And what role do you think, you have a really strong brand as a business. So if you Google your business name, you come up, and so you do a good job. One customer tells another potential customer, they look you up, and then they reach out. When folks talk about word of mouth, sometimes they think it's just, hey, I do a good job, and then someone refers me, but it's also that conversion. We talked about the division earlier. It's not just someone tells someone else, but then that person has to call you or reach out to you. So how does that play for you?
Yeah. So I think about this, and a lot of times as like master crafts people, we think about like the molecular science of oil primer, and we have this crazy knowledge in this. And sometimes we forget to see it from the client's point of view. And one of the biggest takeaways I've had over the years is it has to be easy. And the client, a lot of the time, honestly, doesn't care what you care about. Like 80% of the estimates we do, the client doesn't even care what paint we use. Right. So having this knowledge of molecular science of oil primer doesn't really go that far when you're on an estimate. But what the client does care about is, was it easy to interact with you? Right. That's paramount. If somebody said, yeah, there's this Slavik guy, I don't know. He doesn't have business cards. He doesn't have a phone number. Just Google him. If you type in anything close to Slavik painter in my area, you're going to find me. You have to make it easy for him. And then after you get there, it has to be an easy way to interact. So we actually don't have a phone number for people who have never worked with us to call us. So we make it simple. Everything comes through one funnel. It's as close to Amazon one-click buy that you can get. It's an autofill form. You tell us where you heard us from, tell us about your project, hit that. Within 30 minutes during working hours, you get an estimate scheduled for you.
And Nick, tell us a little bit about that decision to remove the phone number online. What did you notice when you took that off? Were you getting higher quality leads that were coming in, and why did you do it?
Yeah. So initially it was out of necessity, because I was a single owner operator and I was getting 6-8 calls a day, and God love my clients, right? Like when they get me on a call, imagine, Nick, that I'm up on a 32-foot extension ladder, masking off a window in the wind, and I get a call, and I surely want to take care of my client. So I just, hey, this is Nick. How can I help you? And it's an 18-minute phone call where they're talking about the colors and the scope of project. And listen, God love them. Thank you. I love that you do that. But I was getting 18-minute to death. And then I had to climb off the ladder, write a note that says, call Cindy Bauer back tonight, and then schedule her an estimate. So I would call her back again at night and do that. So initially I got rid of my phone number, and you had to go through my website for that, just because, between 4 and 6 in the morning when I was getting ready for work, I would reply to all these. And then throughout the day at lunch, I'd check again. But when people woke up, then they already had a potential time and date. So it was basically out of necessity. And I'm not one of those guys that says everybody should do that, right? Like I'm still open to the idea that I'm missing out on some leads and stuff because some people don't want to use my website. But my argument would be, for every person that says, you know what, this website, I don't trust it, I want to talk to a human, for every one of those I lose, there's a ton of people like me who, it's 5:30 in the morning, I don't have the time for a call, and I'm not going to take time off my day. I can put in this website inquiry, and you know what? Between 8 and 9 in the morning, I got a reply. That's trust to me.
Exactly. And Nick, you talked about similarities to the Amazon one click. Everyone's getting used to this online. And over the last couple of years, we've started doing it for ordering food items for the home on Amazon, and a whole bunch more. And so have you seen that shift accelerate in the last couple of years, where your customers actually want to fill out a form on the website and not talk to you up on that ladder?
You know, honestly, I've not done the focus groups, right? But you can look at all the rest of the industry trends, and you guys are tech guys. Like I'm going to talk about tech, but you guys are like in this. So I am but a simple house painter from the upper Midwest, but I can see the trend where when I first started my business 15 years ago, the only modes of advertising were yellow pages and newspaper. And that was the two things, and business would flood in. Since I started my business, social media, AdWords, I had a website, but it was almost like a vanity project back then. Now it is like an entrance fee to have a business, you know? So it's one of those things where I am seeing everybody our age and younger. It's almost, this is very anecdotal, and it's very much my opinion, but if I really want my concrete driveway poured and I need an estimate, and all I can find are websites with phone numbers, I'm like, oh, all right, I'm not going to do it now. Now I have to make time, and they're going to want all this information. And if I do find a website that has like a place to auto schedule a time, or to automatically give my information, that is always better for me, because I just need some information right away. I don't have time for an 18-minute phone call. And then at the end of that, you know, at the end of every one of these calls, it's always, then there's a follow-up call, there's a follow-up meeting, there's a follow-up this. And it's like, my goal is to just be like, I need about a 2-minute investment from you to go to my website, and then 2 emails later, and we show up at your house within 3 to 5 days. Like, that's it.
Yeah, makes total sense. And, you know, we talked in the beginning about how do you do everything you do, and how do you make the most of that 8-hour and 4-hour chunk. And this is an example of that. And something I think a lot of folks in the industry don't always take into account is not just how much am I getting paid for the job, but what is the cost, and not just the cost of the materials and the labor, but all the time that you put into booking that job. And so your time is the most valuable thing in the business. And if you're cutting down 4 18-minute calls in a day, well, you just got more than an hour back in your schedule. So,
you know, the best thing that could ever happen to the trades is that they hire an estimator, a project manager, an office admin, because then you have to account for their time. Like, a lot of us, you interact with contractors all the time. And it's like, back in the day when I was a single owner operator, you know, I was putting between 80 and 100 grand in my pocket every year. And I was like, boy, if I got this thing licked, like, this is great. What you didn't get is a perspective from my wife, is that Nick doesn't exist. Like, he's just not there. And when he comes home, if you stop looking at him, he'll fall over dead. So when you actually take, like, if I had to pay somebody to do those estimates and do those phone calls, what you realize is that I was working 100 hours a week. And when you divide that 80 to 100 grand over 500 or 5,200 hours of labor a year, I was making $17 an hour. Honestly, when you divide it by the time I had in. So, yeah.
So Nick, before this, I did go online and I searched for Slavik in Minnesota, and you popped right up. You were top of Google. Your website was right there. Podcast was right there. What do you do to ensure that you're in the top spot? You have 150 Google reviews. I think it's got to be top 1% in Minnesota for painters. How do you collect those reviews? How do you ensure the social media is as popular as it is? What do you do in that realm?
First off, I'll look forward to booking that estimate for you. Maybe paint the outside of your house if you like, if you filled out one of the online forms. So we travel for work. So no. So the theme, the biggest lesson I learned last year was you don't have to be extreme, just be consistent. And that is the theme for my company this year. That is the theme for my leadership team, which is, you can sit down one day and say, you know what, I'm going to devote myself to making 100 social media posts, and they're going to be beautiful and they're going to be good. And then if you don't touch it for 9 months, I don't know how the algorithms work and things like that, but that doesn't produce much. It's that drib drab every day, just like reviews. We're going for 2 reviews a week. Like we're not going for that big moonshot where we need 100 reviews this week. It's just 2 a week. It's that slow drip, just chipping away, chipping away. Same thing with social media, same thing with SEO, and same thing with marketing, which is the biggest mistake that unsophisticated, unprofessional businesses do is, hey, it's December, I'm out of work, I should probably market, right? Well, it's too late, right? When we need the jobs in December, we start in late August already marketing because we know that there's a ramp up. So it's that just being consistent every day, every week, every quarter, never letting up for a second.
In terms of collecting those reviews and keeping consistent touch with past customers, do you reach out after a project, ask them for a review, say it would really help to, tack on one more to the Google profile? What do you do to collect
So
reviews?
Good perspective with this is that we've only been serious in the last year or two about reviews. Like, you always hear it's important, but, honestly, like 5-6 years ago, hiring employees and trying to figure out standard operating procedures is 8 times more important than getting a review. Like we'll get to that, right? But we finally professionalized my business up until about 2 years ago, where things like Net Promoter Score, reviews, things like that started to become really important because everything else was sort of like, we had a good system for it. So now we could focus on the next level of stuff. And so the perspective is this is a very unrefined system. It's probably one of the newest systems in my company. Initially, it was scattershot. We wait for it to come in. Then, like we do with all my processes, what's the least amount of work we can do for the biggest thing? So we would just send out an email after a job. And you can imagine we got about maybe 1% compliance with any of that stuff. So we're like, okay, this is the theme of how other systems has worked is we get more and more proactive with it. So we have an office admin, and then she would email and then call follow-up, then email, call, and then another email. And now we found the best way to do this is to actually just pick up the phone when the invoice is paid and just call them. It's a very manual system. We're getting on average 2 to 3 reviews a week. So with this new system, we've got more reviews in the last year than we did in the entire first 12 years of the company. But it's very manual. So now we're trying to refine it again. Now we start sprinkling in whatever automation we can. So good perspective is that's the way I do it now. It's not the end state of what this system will be.
Nick, you're adapting so well to this new world of tech. You started with yellow pages and newspapers. We're here online. I'm wondering if you have any predictions for the next 5 or 10 years. How will the painting industry change? How do you expect your business will change? What do you think?
Yeah. So right now we are neck deep in Chat GPT, right? AI is hitting it. Everybody's like, everybody's just going gangbusters. And the weird part is, especially as business owners, we think, oh my God, I'm not going to need accountants anymore. I'm not going to need marketing agencies. Business owners just think like, this is it. This is it. And I think of it as like in 1979, when the spreadsheet got introduced, it didn't lay off all the accountants, right? Like it actually makes more work for us now because we have more possibilities of things. So what most people don't know is like right now, AI is all hot, and I've been using it for probably about a year in my business, especially with like G Sheets and Excel. There's all sorts of these Excel bots for free all over the internet where you just type in, I want to find a name and then I want to sort it by this, and it'll spit out a function for you. And so at its basic term, it's like, it's creators, it's quick reference stuff that we've been using for a long time. I truly think that if you fast forward 5 to 10 years in our industry, I think it has more to do with the business owners than the actual tech. I don't think the actual functions of there's a website, there's social media, and there's some sort of Google Map presence. That's sort of the entrance fee into all this. I don't think the functions of that are going to change. I just think that if you don't have like either an auto schedule or a quick fill form or a something, I think if all your company does is have a phone number, I think you might be left behind a little bit. And then after that, what happens when you click that form? With Amazon, you get a confirmation email, right? And then it says in 2.5 days it shows up and something shows up. And now we, as our industry professionalizes, it's not enough to just have a quick fill form on your website and get your appointment. Now, how fast does the project manager call? How fast do we schedule the painter? Do we deliver on that promise? Do we bill you quickly? Do we wrap it up quick? Do we deliver on the promise that we made? In 5 to 10 years, mastering the basics, the simple thing of how high velocity professionally can you can you communicate consistently in the trades is going to make all the difference. It's not going to be any crazy technological innovation.
And I think, Nick, on that, it's the trust is the foundation of all the work you do. And so how do you amplify trust with the customer? And one of the ways that you do that is you free up the time to maintain that connection by saving and automating, like we were talking about. And so I agree. I think smart, savvy business owners still need to maintain those customer relationships. They still need to do quality work. And the way that they can do that is save time on everything else. And then the other side of it is think about all of the interactions you're having, not in the service industry, but buying products online, using Amazon like you're talking to. Well, now expectations of consumers shifting as a result of that. And so the trades have to catch up to meeting those basic expectations of the customer. And those that do will accelerate faster, and those that don't, unfortunately, the quality of work might not cut it without that.
So one weird data point that you guys might appreciate is like, I started virtually estimating jobs like 4 or 5 years ago, where the workload was getting so much that I just said like, hey, I'm really good at this and I'm not really surprised by houses. How about you just send me some images, and in 24 hours, I create a detailed estimate. And at one point in 2019, half of all the estimates I was doing and half of all the work we were producing was actually done by virtual estimate, by me sitting at my desk between 4 and 6 in the morning. Then global pandemic happened, and nobody wanted a virtual estimate. Not one single person wanted that, because in a time where you're bereft of human engagement, people were like, you know what? My house is now my office. It's the school for my kids. We got our pets here. And you know what? This project is personal to me. This is my safe place. This is the thing that my whole world is, this house now. I don't want a virtual color consult, even if it's free. I don't want a virtual estimate. I want a human in my house. That was the biggest surprise for me ever. So I think in the future, there are entities out now trying to break into the residential repaint world, where it's all computer driven, where you get an estimate, you take pictures of your job, you get a price, and then you schedule a crew, and a crew shows up and paints it. And they haven't got a lot of traction yet, because still it's such a personal project that people want some human involvement. So I think in the future, having that concierge level service, like, if you're going to buy a brand new Porsche, you're likely not going to do it over a website and it shows up at your house. You almost want that experience of going to a showroom and somebody razzle dazzles you, you get treated nicely, things like that. I think in the trades, especially the residential trades, when you're dealing on the high end, I think that beautiful combination of website, technology, quick interaction, professional communication, but then you unlock this whole team of concierge level people, project managers, estimators. You have all their personal phone numbers. You can ask of them as you want. I think that's the way, at least in the service industries, in the next 10 years, we're going to win.
Yeah. And what's the easiest way to get to that point? And it's everything that came before it that gets you to be able to have that personal touch to it. And so totally makes sense. And that's how you then win that job when it comes in through your website form versus the person that had the phone number and didn't answer at 7 a.m. because they were doing other things for the business.
And people are savvy too. Like, I know when I call at 8:30 at night and I ask for the paint business owner, I'm connected with paint business owners all over the place. I know I'm transferred to an answering service. You're not in the same town as him. You don't maybe even know that person. You're just going to take a message. It's going to show up as an email or a text in his phone, and then he'll call me back. And to me, that's just like, I would have rather just fill out an email. Like, I don't need to talk to somebody on the phone,
Yep, exactly.
We've heard a lot about how you've gotten to this point. Do you have tips for other pros, other painters just starting out? Where might they encounter some difficulties, and what words of wisdom would you have for them?
Yeah, in my involvement with our trade association, the Painting Contractors Association, their mission is this: build better contractors. And I've devoted a lot of years to making resources available for that. And I think of resources in a couple ways. Like, number one, there's the basic things you need to do to even be a player: separate checking account, file as an LLC, get a website, get some stuff on social media, get a phone number, get an email address, just like the basic things of that, so humans can find you. List yourself on Google Maps. After that, now professionalization starts. So now you need standard operating procedures, employee manuals, job descriptions, a review process. So those things are all available. My Ask a Painter live show is a treatise on this. I give out all those resources. The Painting Contractors Association is the same thing. But for people starting out, I always think about do the stuff that'll even make you a player. Knock that stuff out quick. That's literally a day's worth of work. After that, now you got to start picking away at that professionalization.
Now, for pros who maybe have a website or have some of the social media presence, but aren't happy with it and maybe aren't as skilled in that area, what advice do you have for them? I know you have your own website, but you know, it's tough when you have no background in technology, no former website presence. What do you do?
Yeah. So when we think about vendors, right? Like we kind of work on this three-legged stool of interactions in a business. You have employees, you have clients, and then you have your vendors. Most people think so much about the clients, right? We're so client focused. When we start building a company, we start thinking about the employees. And most of the time we completely neglect relationships with vendors. When I look for a vendor, like there's most of the things in this business, I don't know how to do well outside of the actual painting, right? So when I look for somebody to do a website or technology or things like that, we need a good product. We need to have it easy to do, just like we talked about. But then also you have to trust the people that you're working with. A great product with an untrustworthy vendor will make your life a living hell. It is just like constant accountability. Nothing works. Phone call, emails, telling them this isn't this, this isn't this. And it literally monopolizes your life. So my best advice is you got to find a good product. You got to find a good service. And then you have to trust the humans doing it. And that to me is like the perfect mix.
Now I want to end with a rapid fire round, but before we get to that, do you have any final questions, Nick? Other Nick? Top line Nick?
Double Nick problem. I guess, Nick, I'd love to maybe touch a little bit on our experience to know each other over the last couple of years and what you've seen. We've done a couple shows on Ask a Painter and talked about advice for other folks starting out and building up that foundation, the basics, what you talked about, and then level 2 and level 3. Maybe what caught your eye early on when we were starting out that you were like, hey, I should trust these folks and let them share their advice with painters in my network. And then maybe what have you seen evolve with our company and what we have to offer?
Yeah, I was hoping we could talk about you guys too, because I talk about myself a lot. So no, listen, we got to know each other early on in your adventure of growing your own business, and we connected on a business owner level, and we're going through it, man. Like this is like growing a business, getting it stabilized, getting your word out there. Like we can commiserate with a lot of this stuff. Immediately, what caught my eye was your value proposition. And as a business owner, you too, you probably get knocked down your door and your email inbox with a whole bunch of, hey, here's this thing we can do for you. And it's like, listen, I know you want to do a sales pitch, but as a business owner, tell me the value prop. What's unique about this? What is it going to cost me? What am I going to get out of it? And you did not disappoint with that early on. It was like, listen, here's this thing that we do really well. We create some websites, and that was your initial offering. We have these insanely professional websites where basically it's just done like in a very short amount of time for a very reasonable amount of money. We create a website for you. And it's one of those like, shh, just painter, don't worry about it. Just like we got this for you. And you spun off a website for me based on that. And you did it in real time. And I was just like, you know what? Personally, with Ask a Painter and with the trade association, the PCA, all we want to do is build better contractors, and anybody that advocates to help out trades business owners like you guys do, I'm a fan of. And professionalizing this industry can be helped by people like you, by me, and together it's going to make that business a lot better. There's 330,000 painting contractors, as far as we can tell in the United States, 99% of them don't really run a professional business. They're owner operators, they own a job. And if we were to just give them a professional website, a social media presence, and show them the basics, that entrance fee of separate checkbook, LLC, things like that, their lives would turn around in a second. So the service you offer them is unique, and people like me appreciate that very much, Nick.
Well, thank you, Nick. Yeah, our goal is to not make it a barrier. It's scary starting the business. I know we've commiserated on just what it's like to be that business owner. And so sometimes you think about a website, if you're not familiar with it, you think about building your brand online, your presence, and it's intimidating. But what we realized is that it doesn't need to be. It can be quick, it can be easy, and it doesn't need to cost what it used to cost 5 and 10 years ago. And unfortunately, there's still people out in the industry trying to charge thousands of dollars for what doesn't need to be thousands of dollars today. And that's something we're trying to change. We're trying to make it possible to overnight you've got a professional image online, and you go from, you know, that entry-level business to the next level. And so I'm glad it resonated with you and other folks out there. Nick, as you've seen Topline Pro evolve and what we have to offer, so now today we don't just build the website, we also help contractors and those in the trades get more reviews to be trusted, and then make that booking process really simple. We talked about being able to be booked through your website, even something as simple as an auto reply when that booking form is filled out, and a bunch more. What stands out to you as something that could really accelerate other painters' businesses once they have that foundation of a website?
Yeah. So the thing that I can accelerate, the unique thing that I might be able to offer is the perspective that the things that you're doing now, like 2, maybe even 3 years ago, were just like, they're just like, contractors never heard of it. Most of them didn't even have a website. And now, honestly, over the last couple of years, it's kind of like that entrance fee sort of stuff. Like if you're not doing this, all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of other people that are. And those other people who are doing the things you're offering are so infinitely easier to interact with. It's almost like people would put up with a worse service just because it's easier to interact with. So it's sort of like one of these, like, it's not this novelty. It's not this nice to have maybe someday. It's almost like, I would guess within the next 12 to 24 months, that is now the standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm the engineer, so I want people's minds to go, and I'm just curious if there is one thing, you know, websites baseline, if there is one thing though, that could impress painters in 12 months or 24 months, what do you think it could be?
Yeah. 2 things, right? And this is going to be purple unicorn, magic wand, fairy dust stuff, right? Would be a website or something. Our dreams as business owners is to find smarty pants like you guys and give you a nominal fee every month and have too many leads, like literally get avalanched to the point where you're just like, hold on, stop it, turn it off. Okay. So that's obviously, that's the first thing. Number 2 would be an enterprise software custom made for painters, where it basically, like right now I can go out and do any sorts of CRM, enterprise software, but our business is simple and unique, and it will do 1,000 things that I don't need it to do. And 2 things that I really need it to do won't be there. I understand that that's every piece of software, right? But for painters, we're not sophisticated enough to do all that stuff. And so having something that does all the things that my company specifically needs automatically would be great. So that's my purple unicorn ask for you guys.
Well, Nick, you basically summarized what we're aiming to do. We're basically aiming to allow small and medium-sized contracting businesses to be as professional and successful as the enterprise businesses, and be able to compete with them and match that customer expectation without paying that crazy price tag that some people expect. So hopefully we'll continue chipping away at that and what we offer. And hey, at the next time we do a series together, we can show some of those updates and see if we hit that mark. But it's awesome to hear. And you know, I think the thing that you highlighted is just what is baseline today. That has shifted. And so you have to catch up to that baseline and not be afraid of what it takes to get there.
And, you know, I'll reiterate again too, because I probably have way more knowledge of you and your firm than most other people who are probably going to be watching this. The thing that I've admired most about you, and the reason why I'm doing this with you now, is because you genuinely care about contractors. Like from the second that we met, the way you talked about your product, the way you talked about the people who used it, I was like, this dude really cares about the people he's selling this thing to. And it's like, that comes off. So that is unique, right? Like, yeah, I know that it's who you guys are, it's your company culture, but that literally is like the second part of that vendor relationship, which is like the value proposition for the tech and the ease of using it is already there. So like, great. Okay. That makes it a good thing for painters. But when you can sprinkle on that sort of second thing of like, you guys care and you're actually good to work with, like that is a good vendor relationship. And honestly, most of us painters and paint business owners, we don't have many of those pure, wonderful, blissful vendor relationships, right?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. It means a lot. Yeah. We talked about metrics earlier. One of our North Star metric is how many jobs per month are we generating for each of the businesses we work with, because we know at the end of the day, that's what is moving the needle for folks we work with. And if that is our North Star metric, then we will provide value. We will work on the right things. And so it's paying attention to that and making sure that that's moving up and to the right as we go.
Absolutely love it.
Awesome. Just to close with a rapid fire. And if we want to even continue talking after the rapid fire, that's fine too. But I want to have a rapid fire.
Yep.
Nick, what's your goal? Why are you doing all this? Ask a Painter, company, Contractors Association. Why are you doing all of it?
Biologically, I'm unable to not do it. It was just a natural urge. And over the last couple of years, getting really involved with the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, I found a bunch of people like me. And those people introduced me to the idea of being a servant leader. And naturally, really good leaders serve others, and you find a purpose outside yourself. And a lot of times it's just biological. So 10 years ago, I started posting on social media about sharing stuff. There's no reason to do that, right? Except it was fun. I saw a bunch of cool stuff. I posted about it, and here we are. So it's biological.
Servant leader. I haven't heard that. That's good. What's the biggest mistake you've made?
Yeah.
What have you learned as a result?
Yeah, it's all about accountability, right? So I'm from the upper Midwest, introverted and passive aggressive, and we're not good with accountability up here. We don't even like a lot of eye contact, right? So like holding somebody accountable to their job description, their KPIs, their performance, when they just naturally do it, it's great. That's a relationship we like. But when they don't, it gets really stressful for us up here. And forcing myself to have a system of doing that, like walking into the firefight, has been the hardest lesson I've learned, but I do now have a system of that. And most of the pain of running a business, not most, all the pain of running a business revolves around the humans in it, right? And I would draw it back to missteps from me as a leader, creating all that pain.
What's the biggest mistake you've seen other painters in the industry making?
It's way simpler than that. And it's not their fault, right? This isn't a value judgment, but most painters don't even have a separate checkbook to run their business through. Most of them don't pay taxes. 99% of our industry is a single owner operator that were forced to start their own business because there's not enough professional companies to hire them. So out of necessity, people are master craftspeople and they're forced to own a business, and they didn't prepare for this. They don't even want to some of the time. So it's basically, yeah, the average lifespan of a painting company is 1 to 3 years, and the average paint business owner makes $43,000 a year. So their biggest mistake is just not being thrust into something they never asked for.
As you've scaled from 1 to 5 to 20 to, you said 40 during summers, what's been the biggest challenge?
Yeah. Biggest challenge is keeping that inspirational culture of this company. That there is literally nobody who loves this craft more than me. I have martyred myself for it. I still love painting. I love it so deeply. I love leadership deeply, entrepreneurship deeply, and trying to instill that love of your job, of your craft, of your thing in all of my people is a really big, constant effort. And constantly trying to be a good leader who does that is very important. Like there's a difference between ordering somebody to do it and inspiring somebody to do it. And still, that's not something I've solved. I think I do it a little, but I think I can do a way better job.
Fantastic. Any final words, Nick?
No, I'm deeply appreciative for you guys and what you're trying to do to help our industry. And yeah, just thank you. Making it easy for us so we can get back to painting is a huge thing. So just thanks.
Well, thank you for coming on Titan Talks. It's been such great fun talking to you. And thanks to the CEO of Topline Pro, Nick Ornitz, as well. Thanks to both of you. This has been Titan Talks.